Hello and welcome to It'll Be Alright in the 90s, the world's most millennium bug-fearing podcast. I'm Alex Greenwood, and down the line over there in the People's Republic of Chippenham is Stu Jocelyn. How's it going, Stu?
Hello, mate. Yeah, very well. Thanks, very well. As you'll see, I'm freshly shorn for this episode. All the hair's gone. I went to see the official barber of the pod, Will, last week. I was just getting too many people stopping me in the street saying, Ben, I loved your work with A1. Can I grab an autograph and a picture? So I was getting too much attention, mate, so I had to go. But yeah, all good. And looking forward to this episode because this is something that isn't really in my wheelhouse, and it's the first time we've done something like this. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, good. We'll come on to what we're doing in a second, but well, yeah, I mean, it's probably in a matter of time before you start getting recognised around town as Stu Jocelyn, the co-host of this podcast. So you'll have a small window where you're not being recognised. So make the most of that.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Yeah, I've got to, like you say, make the most of the anonymity while I can before it goes stratospheric and my life changes forever, and yours, of course.
Yeah, hopefully.
We can but try.
Okay, so yeah, before we get into the topic of the episode, I should say that today's episode is sponsored by MVC. So now if you're an existing MVC card holder, and you can visit your local branch with said card and quote the code AllRight90s, and you'll be eligible to purchase 3 CD singles for just $2.99, which is amazing, really. So that's Music and Video Club, the High Street's most dynamic entertainment retailer, the sponsor of today's episode.
That's great value. Although I have heard rumours that they are soon to be taken over by a company called FOP. Have you heard anything about this?
I haven't heard of that. No, that would be a real shame. I haven't heard about that actually. There's no greater sign of panic from a company than sponsoring this podcast, to be honest. But
well, I mean, look what happened to Time Computers, you know.
Yeah. But MVC, we're glad of your sponsorship of today's episode, and we hope it makes a difference for your sales. So, cheers for that. I think you've got a mention about someone who appeared on one of our previous episodes, who sadly passed away a few weeks ago.
Yes. Well, to say appeared, what we mean to say is that we examined some of his work in greater detail. But of course, and this is a few weeks late, so apologies for this, but we do have to mark the sad passing of John Challis, of course, most famous for playing Boycie in Only Fools and Horses. I've enjoyed his work very much over the years. I'm sure you have as well, Alex.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he quickly became a hero of ours on this podcast when we were looking at the adverts of the 90s a few episodes ago. And of course, his stellar performance in the Prestige Auto Bodyworks of Slough advert came in for particular merit and discussion on this pod. So we just want to mark the passing of the sad passing of John. And at the end of the episode, we will play the Prestige Bodyworks advert once again for everybody to enjoy, just to say thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a new feature for today's episode, the first ever outing for brand new feature that we're calling What's the Most 90s? And this is a very simple feature whereby we're going to take it in turns to ask each other what we think is the most 90s of a certain subject, whether it's music based or entertainment or sport. We think almost anything can be classified as the most 90s of a certain group. So I might as well just ask the first one. This will help explain the feature. I'm going to ask you, Stu, what is the most 90s football club?
Well, you obviously asked me this afternoon to give me some time to think about it, but I didn't need much time to think about it because I had an answer in mind straight away. Obviously, you could talk about football clubs that were prominent in the 90s spring to mind. You've got Oldham Athletics, Great Escape on the last day of the first season of the Premier League. I would say also teams like Coventry City, maybe they're scrapping around there in the and seemingly escaping relegation by the skin of their teeth most seasons. But I have to go for the team that I think is the most 90s as Wimbledon, because I just think that at their 90s peak, they were a team that nobody else possibly could be, and you wouldn't get that sort of team these days. It seems like something that had its home in the 90s, but then as football sort of advanced and became through into the 2000s, the way that Wimbledon were and the way that they played and the way that the whole Crazy Gang thing worked, it seemed to fall out of fashion very, very quickly. And I think that teams sort of moved away from trying to engender that sort of atmosphere. And of course, Wimbledon didn't exist for very long after the 1990s as well. So you can't get a more 90s football team than that. Yeah. But they obviously had their high points. I think their best finish was 6th in the Premier League at one point. But yeah, when I think back of 90s football and specifically the teams of the 90s, Wimbledon is up there for me for sure.
Yeah, that's a good choice. They came to my mind as well. I think, like you say, they sort of stand out as just being so sort of unique around that time for lots of different reasons, and even down to like the shirts they wore. There was no one else that I know of that plays in all navy like that. Not in the top flight anyway. Not in the maybe even the top 2 or 3 divisions. So
yeah, and the whole thing of sharing the ground as well, with not having their own ground and just playing at Crystal Palace. I saw a documentary from the time about them recently, and the chairman Sam Hammam, he's asked about it, and he just says, "Well, Crystal Palace let us play there for free, so why would we bother looking for our own ground when we can just play here for nothing?"
Yeah,
you know, and that was it. That was the end of the matter.
Yeah.
So
it makes it less surprising that they ended up folding and becoming, well, not folding, but moving to Milton Keynes, really, doesn't it, with that sort of attitude. But yeah, exactly. I also thought about Coventry as well, exactly the same thought process as you, with that sort of teams that were kind of in the Premier League in that early 90s era, but and now nowhere near the Premier League. They kind of, represent the 90s.
I don't know. I think Coventry are riding high at the top of the Championship at present. I think we if things continue, we could see. I mean, as we sit here and talk, it's mid-October, so I don't want to make any predictions about what's going to happen at the end of the season. But we could see it could be a more 90s looking Premier League come next season. Obviously, Villa are back up there now, thankfully for me. Yeah. And it's got a bit more of a 90s look about it these days. So, and of course with the Canaries up there as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, the more teams that were in there when the Premier League started, the better.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. But another thing about this feature is that we hope that listeners will get involved on Twitter or by emailing in or on Facebook. Just answer what you think is the most 90s football club, and in future episodes we'll obviously have different topics. So yeah, let us know what you think about that, and we'll be glad to hear from you.
Yeah, please do.
On with today's topic, which is going to be the 1992 to 2003 docudrama sort of program. It's kind of hard to describe exactly what it is. But it's 999. And this was, as I said, ran from 92 to 2003, so predominantly in the 90s, presented by Michael Burke and Juliette Morris. And if you don't remember it at all, each episode would sort of feature 2 or 3 real-life stories or emergencies or near-death escapes, and they would be reconstructed alongside sort of talking heads of the people who were involved, and whether it's the person who suffered the accident or the emergency services, and they would sort of go through it again and discuss how they got out of it and what the implications were. According to Wikipedia, it said that the reconstructions were played out by a mix of actors and the real people involved, plus occasionally Michael Burke himself, which I do not remember at all. But I love the idea of him playing like a farm worker or something in the background.
Maybe he was just a very unlucky guy, and a lot of stuff happened to him.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So do you remember it, Stu? You said at the start it was sort of not an area that you were knowledgeable about, but
it's a strange one, really, because as has been well covered in previous episodes, I was pretty much obsessed with the emergency services when I was a child, particularly the police. So I loved programs like Bill and Police Camera Action. But 999, it wasn't a regular view for me. I don't know if my parents thought I might find it a bit too harrowing at such a young age, seeing as this is real stuff that happened. And I have to say that when watching these clips yesterday and making up my notes, obviously for us recording today, it did make me feel slightly uncomfortable.
Yeah,
even after all these years. So yeah, it wasn't a regular watch, but I was definitely aware of it. I'm sure there was a children's TV version, like the same sort of thing, but it was called Against All Odds, and it might have been hosted by Kate Sanderson.
Oh right, I don't remember that.
Yeah. Yeah,
cool.
I'm sure there was, and it was obviously very heavily sanitized and stuff like that, and essentially was teaching children or showing them like life-saving skills and things like that. And this is why when you go down to the bottom of the deep end and pick up the rubber brick and come back up again, this is why it's important in your swimming lessons. You know, because one day you might have to rescue somebody. So yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
I mean, to say I found it slightly uncomfortable, but I did enjoy it all the same. There's plenty to unpack in the 3 clips you've chosen. So you were a regular viewer of this program.
I think I must have been. Because I remember so many segments of it, and I just remember talking about it in the playground in primary school after the day after, and sort of being mutually freaked out by it with my friends. There's some real standout moments. I looked very hard to find the javelin segment, which I think if just by saying the word javelin you'll know what I mean, listeners. But I couldn't find it, frustratingly. One of the other key ones that I remember was someone getting sort of stuck to the bottom of a jacuzzi because I think their hair got caught in the fan. That's another one of those things where, like you say, you can't not think of that when you're in a jacuzzi yourself. Like, I think any one of our generation who watched that will have just taken that away forever as a sort of warning. So I think it did have some real impact in that way. There was one specific thing that I remember, which was someone was driving down a motorway, and as they sort of came alongside this lorry that had broken down on the side of the road, for some reason one of the lorry's tires exploded just as they pulled alongside, and something smashed through the window of this driver and then sort of basically like knocked their lower jaw not off, but like disfigured, like smashed into their face. And ever since then I've been slightly freaked out by tires. I think exploding lorry tires. I don't know why that one's always really stuck out, but it just really freaked me out. But that isn't one of the ones we've chosen. I've chosen 3 clips. 2 of them are for a local connection, and one was just because it was the closest I could find to the javelin. It's got certain themes a tie-in with the javelin one, which you'll know what I mean when we play it. But this episode is going to take the form of a watch along. So it's the same as the police camera action live or run one that we did, I think, for our 2nd or 3rd episode. So we're going to watch the episode on YouTube and discuss it, and we urge you to watch them at the same time, and so you can see what we're talking about. We'll obviously give you the links to the YouTube links in the description for the episode, so you can work out what we're talking about. Yeah,
and these are all sort of 7 to 10 minutes each. These clips, so it's not a particular episode. It's just three highlights. I say highlights. 3
as much of a highlight as it can be.
Yeah. That we've picked out. So and we're going to start with one here that's enigmatically titled "The Wiltshire Tractor Incident."
Yeah, that's just a great name, isn't it? Right, I am going to press play after. So if you're listening, please tee it up now using the link we've given you.
Yep.
And we're going to start. Are you ready, Stu?
I am ready, mate.
We're going to start playing in 3, 2, 1. Michael Burke.
This is a lovely raincoat that you don't really see the likes of anymore. That Michael's modelling here in the opening segment.
Yeah, they really did die out with the 90s, didn't they? They're sort of beige Macs.
Would it be fair to call it a flasher Mac? Is that?
That's probably why they died out.
Far be it from me to suggest that Michael Burke is into that sort of thing. I don't wish to. I don't wish to go down that road. But...
We don't want Jeff to be on our case again.
No, exactly.
We missed a bit where this is exactly why people think people from Wiltshire are country bumpkins, because he said the people of this local village were having a party, and then it cuts to a barn with people doing Morris dancing.
Yeah.
That is not what everyone in Wiltshire considers a party. Just so you know, listener, please. That's not the parties I was having when I was young.
We're 56 seconds in, and already we've seen Morris dancers, some chickens, and now we're with a tractor. So this is highly offensive to me as a Wiltshire native. I have to say.
Yeah.
I didn't know the exact nature of the job he was doing.
Pit Pullman here.
Copford St Peter, by the way, which is just outside Wiltshire. I've lived in Wiltshire my entire life, and I've never heard of it.
No, I was the same. This is a very soothing bit where a man with a Wiltshire accent discusses the intricacies of hay bales.
Yes.
I think he says, what does he say? He says there's a new type of bale, like there's a development in the bale world. these are especially big bales that
Didn't you see it in Hay Bale Quarterly? It was all over the front page.
Oh no.
Oh, here we go.
This is the problem.
Yeah.
So, if for some reason you can't watch along, the young farmhand has driven his tractor and he's tried to lift, as we've described, a very new, very big hay bale, and it's sort of tipped over and fallen on his head.
Yeah. I like the quaint way that Pip Pullman answers the phone with his own telephone number. That's died out, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yeah, you don't get that with mobiles anymore, do you?
No, indeed. I might start doing that, actually. Answering my full mobile number. Right, first point of interest coming up here, and I've done a bit of research on the other clips as well. We're now looking at Pip Pullman's red Ford Cortina. We've got a nice little in-car shot here of him looking concerned and driving along to the farm.
Yeah.
I am right. This is a Cortina, isn't it, Alex? I think.
Well, I've never been very clear on the difference between a Cortina and a Granada. So it's definitely one of those two.
Yes.
I will take your word for it that it's a Cortina.
Anyway, last taxed in September 1993. I've looked it up.
Ooh.
Yeah, obviously, as it's a farm vehicle, it could quite possibly have been kept off the road just for off-road use after that. But,
yeah.
Anyway, back to the main action.
We missed a bit where the victim of the accident's parents, one of whom is talking now, had to sort of reenact receiving the phone call, and it sort of really highlights the sort of risks, I suppose, of having the people who are involved do the reconstruction, because both the acting is not great, and also they're clearly still having to they're reliving something that's clearly very traumatic in their life.
Yeah.
And there's sort of shows, not necessarily in a good way in terms of acting, in a more of a sort of harrowing way.
I mean, I can't understand why the people who are actually involved in it, like Pip Pullman here, why they would want to be involved in a dramatic reconstruction of something.
I don't get it either.
Which must rank as one of the most traumatic incidents. Their son has just broken his back.
Yeah.
Right? And
can you act that out for us?
For the cameras.
Yeah.
Now, Pat McSherry is the kind of guy that I would want to come along if I was ever in need of medical attention, I think.
Oh yeah.
Just
he does.
General demeanour. And...
Pat McSherry does sound like a sort of comedy character, comedy drunk that you'd get in a sort of low-rent sitcom, doesn't he?
Of course.
Of course, I'm not saying that Pat McSherry, the real Pat McSherry, had any issues with drink, and he certainly did not drink on the job.
Of course,
I shouldn't have even put that thought in anyone's mind. But
not like the Andy Bass coppers from the Liver Runners, of course, who were already well alight by the time.
Yeah.
By the time they got going.
They were very proud of that. Oh, that is such a nice old fire engine, that old Dodge.
A lovely Dodge, yeah, fantastic.
With the proper sort of bucket blue lights on top and the red wheels.
Now this is actually, I mean, we've been making light of it so far, but the way they actually sort this out so that they can move, it's Jerry his name, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that they can move Jerry off the tractor, because it's obviously a very difficult position. The guy's broken his back. They need to move him off the tractor, and they know exactly what to do. When watching this yesterday to make my notes, I was just entirely impressed by the way that they by the way that they dealt with it all, as I was throughout the entire clips we watched.
Yeah.
And I can continue to be in awe of the emergency services just as much now as I was then.
Yeah. They did say, I think they were about to say that, like with a back injury like that, if you move the person wrong, then you can just compound it tenfold, and potentially cause more damage in the actual accident. I do notice in one of the comments 10 months ago, Steve UK said they do things slightly differently now. They now use a spinal board. The English is terrible from the comment, but I'm assuming that there's a new piece of equipment called a spinal board that they would have used to.
I believe so.
Get him out, rather than, I think there's a paramedic just holding Jerry still at this point, but that would probably have been a spinal board or something like that. But some genuine pet-sounding pain there from the actor playing Jerry, the only actor I believe in the scene.
I think everybody else must have been given the day off to. So I hope there was no other emergencies around Covert and Peter on the day that they were filming this, because everybody's tied up.
Yeah.
Everybody's tied up with this.
Sheep rustling went up 100% that day. There's his dad, his real dad, looking genuinely like he's reliving the whole thing before his very. I mean, he is reliving the whole thing before his eyes, but it doesn't look like he's having the best effect on him. I've actually had a bit of a bad back the last week, so this bit about what's really happened to his spine, I could almost empathise with. But kind of terrifying how delicate the spine is, especially if you're a Wiltshire farmer.
So this is the doc showing us exactly what's happened by this extremely heavy hay bale landing on the guy's head.
Yeah.
We call a complete paraplegia.
And it's not great, is it? It's not great.
No.
I was under the impression that with 999 it was almost always a happy ending, really. But and I suppose it does become a happy ending because we'll find out in a second.
You do get a bit nervous when at the start it says everyone's played by the real people apart from Jerry, the person who got hit by the head. But you think, oh, why is he not there? But here he is on camera for the first time.
Everyone was telling me I was talking rubbish, but
with a fine tash that you would only really see in the early 90s, I think.
Sort of an odd accident to come out. I think they saved me.
I'm trying to identify what sort of ambulance that is behind. Is that an old Renault or is it an old Talbot? I can't quite make it out. They're not giving me a better view of it.
I'm not too sure. I've got some gen on an ambulance which appears later on in one of the other clips.
I know what you're gonna. I know which one you mean.
Yeah, I think you'll be impressed with what I managed to find out. So
okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
Jerry was very determined.
These bits are always less exciting about the episodes. We've seen like the drama now, and now it's more talking heads about the recovery and the aftermath, which is.
I'd just like to mention the width of Pip's collar in that in these talking heads is the collar is splayed wide. In a very mid to late 1970s fashion, really.
Yeah. It's true.
Maybe it was still the 1970s in Copper St. Peter.
Oh, I imagine it still is to this day. Yeah, so now we're seeing footage of the real Jerry having some physiotherapy, trying to regain his. Well, I guess he is walking at this point, but not comfortably. It doesn't look like.
He's going through the motions with the physio.
Yeah.
But then in the next scene, I think we see him moving. Here we go on the farm, back on the farm with his stick, doing okay. So.
Yeah, and a couple of very skinny cows. And they haven't been fed since because he's been in hospital this whole
Well, that's
time.
Exactly it. I was just about to say, yeah.
Famished, those cows. Yeah, and there's a smile from Pip Pullman to and back to the Wiltshire party with the bearded Morris dancers. And there's a shell suit. Stu, there was a shell suit there.
Shell suit, yeah, we saw that.
And their aim was to get.
Fantastic. And there's Pat in the crowd there as well.
Yeah, absolutely no one smiling in that whole crowd. Weird. That's a party, for goodness sake. Okay, and that's the end of that clip. The Wiltshire tractor incident.
Yeah, I loved. I mean, the star of that clip for me was definitely Pip.
Yeah.
In both in terms of acting and talking heads, I think he was worth his weight in gold in that. In that 10 minutes there.
I keep seeing lots of suggested videos for other 999 clips that are distracting. Okay, so I think, are we going to go on to the driver impaled following RTC in Surrey is the name of the
can do.
Of the next clip. Unfortunately, it doesn't say which series or which episode these come from, so I can't tell you. There's very little information on IMDb or Wikipedia, I don't think, so I can't identify that. But
okay,
right,
here we go.
So we're going to hit play in 3, 2, 1. Michael Burt. So we're introduced to the main character here, Colin Simpson.
Colin Simpson, who in the comments, it says here somebody has Googled him and he passed away in October 2017. So, considering what happens to him in the following 8 or so minutes, that is an absolute miracle.
Yeah, it looks like he was 86 as well when he died. So, did you look up his Volvo?
Well, we've got a lovely Volvo 240 here.
In brown.
Last taxed the 1st of March 1987, but
yeah.
Again, we'll probably see in a minute why it was last taxed in March 1987.
Yeah.
But my favourite bit of the clip now is him fishing around in his pullover for his shortcut.
Why show that? Why put that back in the reconstruction? This bit's good. He says he didn't want to be in the doghouse. He didn't want to be late, so he didn't stop at the local pub on his way back. Then look at the next scene. He's driving in the middle of the road at 10 miles an hour. He clearly did stop at the pub. He clearly stopped. He's had a couple of tenants or something.
He's been in there
veering all over the road. And then he says, say that again, sorry?
Pat McSherry's been leading him astray.
Yeah. And then he says something like, there's like a little motorcyclist with the red helmet. It's like he's seeing things. Who describes it as a little motorcyclist with a red helmet? And I mean, they've used that in the reconstruction. That is a little motorcyclist with a red helmet. And then, oh God.
Yeah. Now we're in trouble.
Amazingly, no one has stopped by this point. He crashed when it was daylight, and now it's dark, and still no one stopped, which is how quiet these roads are, I suppose.
But then we hear sirens in the background in a second, so presumably somebody has come across him and called the emergency services.
Yeah. I guess in those days you couldn't just use a mobile, could you? You had to probably have to driven onto that next pub and said there's a chap down here who's got a fence post to his chest.
Still going on about his cigarettes, even though he's now got a 10-foot pole going directly through his chest.
First thing he does is try and reach for a cigarette.
So yes, if you're behind us or not watching, unfortunately Colin has now got one of these supporting poles for the bridge he was driving over, which has gone through the car, missed the engine block, come through the dashboard, and straight through Colin Simpson himself.
Yeah.
It was only when passers-by had called the emergency services.
Was this the ambulance you wanted to talk about?
I think this is still the reconstruction. So we now go into the fire brigade video, which is the first time we see this. And you can see the pole
and right through Colin Simpson
there, which has gone through the engine and through Colin. Yeah. Very unfortunately.
That is spectacular. I'm a bit confused about the number. So they've used the real number plate in the reconstruction, haven't they?
Yeah, you can't fault them for attention to detail. That's the correct number plate for the car.
I did wonder why it hadn't been MOT'd since the late 80s. So it makes sense now.
So you start getting all the big guns in then.
Amazingly, Colin is still alive.
Yeah.
And attempts then begin to extricate him from the car and save his life.
Look how that's the first time I've noticed how far the pole still carries on right into the back of the car, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's practically in the boot, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy how long that how far it was stuck through the car and Colin.
They had to leave the pole inside him. It would have been too dangerous to try to remove it there and then.
They had to leave the pole inside him. You know, it's still in him to this day. Well, actually, it's not to this day because as you said, he passed away in 2017. But I think he probably kept his cigarettes in it at the end.
I should imagine so. I should imagine probably found some use for it.
Yeah.
To cut the pole either side of Colin,
or maybe held his fishing rod. He started off fishing. I don't know if missed that, but that's where he was driving back from.
And now we have to try and figure out how to cut the pole in order to remove Colin from the car while still keeping him alive, which is obviously an extremely delicate situation.
I reckon about 2 foot each side of the patient. We could secure that much. We could handle it without getting
I'm just I'm in a slight daydream as I imagine what that's like to have that through your chest and then have it slowly removed.
I just shouted stop until we'd got him.
There's some great spectacles here from Brian the ambulance man as well.
Yeah,
I had a pair like that when I was 5 or 6. My mum still regrets it.
Had a what like that? Did you say?
I had a pair of spectacles like just like that when I was about 5 or 6, but my mum regrets it. It made me look. Now here we go. PPJ 869X. This is the Bedford ambulance, which was on the scene.
Okay.
According to the DVLA, that ambulance was on the road until 2015.
Oh wow!
So somebody kept it going, which is obviously excellent to see. And an X plate on a suffix would have been about 1980, I think. So it survived for 35 years.
Hopefully not still in the ambulance service by the end, but you never know. Might have been serving a quiet route somewhere in Surrey still. But well, that would probably revive my spirits if I'd been in an accident. If that turned up, I'd be pleasantly surprised.
Start taking some pictures for the Insta.
Yeah. And by the way, the pub that he may or may not have stopped in on the way back is still there. I looked it up. I found it on Google Street View.
Oh, brilliant!
It's still there. The brickmaker, I believe it is, or brickmakers.
Entering the chest on the left side.
That's an X-ray you never want to see of yourself, isn't it?
No.
Miss the heart and the centre of the lung and causes massive damage to the ribs.
Yeah, I bet it's just Richard Sayers' best dinner party story, wasn't it?
I would think so.
For years after this, he was dining out on it.
It's one of these things where if it was 2 or 3 centimeters either side, he would have been killed instantly, I think.
Yeah.
So we were really left.
It's one of those weird situations where you're both very lucky and very unlucky at the same time.
And this is itself was something that
I would have to agree.
I'm wondering what happened to the little motorcyclist with the red helmet. I wonder if
were they ever traced? Did anything ever? Yeah.
Did they even exist, or was it a figment of 4 or 5 pints of Stone's lager? Sorry, Jeff just tapped me on the shoulder. I need to.
Yeah. Come on, we got to stop libeling people on this podcast. We get in trouble. We really are. There's a lovely early 90s PC here that Colin's working on.
Yeah.
Can't quite see the brand, but that's amazing. And then in the last minute of the clip here is my favourite part, where we hear that he's made a good recovery. He's got a little feeling now in one of his arms, or little power, I should say. But apart from that,
yeah, it looks like he's gardening. Okay.
Yeah, and then right at the end here.
Refer to it as my silly accident the day I kidnapped myself.
I've just stopped talking. Sorry, I'm enraptured.
Did you say I refer to it now as my silly accident?
Yeah. Here we go. He just gets it out. There it is.
There it is.
Well, that went through me. Hospital gave it to me as a souvenir, and I keep it in the broom cupboard.
Oh wow.
Quite matter of fact. Just keep it around in a broom cupboard.
That's like something out of a sitcom. It's like Oh, it's genius. There's another one of those suggested videos there. The Great Storm one. It's a suggested video. It just shows an airplane upside down in a field, like a dead beetle.
Well, the one that I was, if I may, the one that I was interested in when looking through, I did have a look at the list of episodes, and there was a special episode on something called Operation Coat Hanger. I don't know if you looked at this.
No, I didn't.
I can't find the episode anywhere, but it's about a 1995 flight from Hong Kong to London, and there was a surgeon who was on the flight.
Oh, okay.
And he'd examined a passenger who was complaining of arm pains, and it turned out that she'd suffered a pneumothorax. It says here. I don't claim to be any sort of medical expert, but it sounds to me like some sort of collapsed lung type thing. They weren't able to land the plane. They weren't able to do anything, so they had to. He had to operate with just what was on the plane.
Oh God!
So it says here that they used, amongst other things, a clothes hanger, hence Operation Clothes Hanger. Bottles of water, cognac was used for sterilisation. He had to ask somebody to hold the incision in the chest open with a knife and fork while he. And that is a full episode of 999 that I would like to see, but unfortunately, I'm unable to find it anywhere. But yeah, just a slight diversion there into Operation Coat Hanger. The last one then, and we're coming back to Wiltshire here, for the girl trapped between two walls in Swindon. This is probably my favourite clip of the three, and I think it's the one with the least jeopardy, so I feel like I'm the most comfortable about picking out the funny parts of this.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I don't feel,
definitely.
I don't, because nobody was really in any sort of serious danger. I don't think, but there's a particularly funny person in this, which I'd like to talk about a bit further. So shall I start us off on this one then?
Yes,
I'd like to say 3, 2, 1, Michael Burke. I'll be honest.
Okay. Give us a countdown.
I will. So 3, 2, 1, Michael Burke. Okay. And he starts by saying, "It's all true, you bastards." So they must have been getting some letters about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I don't believe any of this is true, but yeah. So there's obviously Michael's been told he has to go in front of the cameras to confirm this.
Yeah.
So Michael's introducing a reconstruction of a young lady in Swindon who was playing around at her uncle's house.
But tonight we're going to show you the whole thing.
And here we go. I think they're all actors in this again, are they?
I think so. Yeah.
I was around my cousin Jennifer's house, playing with Jennifer.
But they're all here properly as a talking head. So we've got Melissa Phelan, who's the young lady who ends up with the problem here.
Did you notice that little Wild West moment there, by the way, when those boys turned up and the camera's sort of behind them down on the ground? And there's a little twang of music there, and they try and go Wild West for just like a second.
Brilliant. So here we go. They've been denied access to the back garden by the uncle. There's about a 6-inch to 8-inch gap between the two buildings. It's the house and an extension, and they can get through this gap to the garden. Also, they think.
Yeah. It's a weird building sort of structure, isn't it? Why you'd leave that tiny gap? It's just it's a waste of space.
I have to admit as well, when I saw the girls looking at the gap and thinking, we can get down there to get to the garden, I did think to myself, for Christ's sake, you know? Why would you do this?
Why was the uncle stopping them going in the garden?
He just said, "I'm not having you running through the house all day." And I bet after everything they had to go through in order to extricate Melissa from the situation, I bet he wishes he had let me through the house.
Yes, I bet he does. And if you're going to do that, lock them in the garden. Don't lock them out in the street.
Yeah,
that's the wrong way around.
Yeah, Mary, it's John.
Sorry, I think it is the uncle playing himself here.
Okay. John Bunce.
John Bunce.
Yeah.
So I think 2 of the girls have managed. All 3 of them tried to go down the gap. 2 of them have managed to get themselves out by this point, but Melissa is stuck fast in the middle.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how that works. How do you get like that far down and then get stuck?
Yeah.
And I guess she's a child and doesn't have full control over well, logic and movement. But
why wouldn't you build that extension onto the house? Why would you leave a gap like that? That is so annoying.
It's so annoying.
Explain.
It's all that gap is for. It's for stuff to get stuck down, whether it's a child or I don't know, a rake or something, or a football or a tennis ball. Why?
Also, you've got Pete Townsend here from the Wiltshire Fire and Rescue Service, just taking some time out from being on tour with the Who.
Yeah.
To come and do some work in the emergency services.
Yeah, well, there's lots of space, isn't there? I suppose in between album records and.
I suppose so.
The often used broom trick being used here, fortunately, didn't end up working. Spoiler alert.
I think we're going to cut here in a second to more fire brigade official amateur video, aren't we?
Yes.
Yep.
There's a bit where this circular saw sort of suddenly starts making a noise. It sounds like it's gone through the wall into the girl, but it momentarily made my heart jump a little bit.
Well, she's here as a talking head, mate, so I think, I think we're all right.
You haven't seen her arms, though, have you?
Once they got through the first layer, they found
okay, so they're now taking apart John Bunce's extension.
I'm glad they're taking it apart because of the stupid design decisions he made.
There's a part here. I think his next talking head. I've already gone past. I don't know, but he seems extremely unbothered about Melissa's predicament, and he's just like, "Oh, new extension. Here we go."
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
This is my luck all over. You know.
I know the bit you're talking about.
Yeah.
He's
very, very unsympathetic.
I can imagine the fire brigade just having very little time for him. And look at this bloody guy turned up with a camera. It's like this is pre-mobile phones, you know. He just thought, hang on, this is going to be good for the lads back at the station. Can you get the camera out?
Here we go.
Yeah, real footage now.
Yeah. I think we're cutting between.
Showing off a trainers. I couldn't quite get a glimpse of them.
They might have been Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, I think.
Oh yeah.
I think, yeah.
She got so close, didn't she? Unless she's on her way back. If that's the garden, she got so close to her goal.
So now they're saying that they have to burst the wall away.
Yeah. There he is.
Here we go.
Here we go.
There's a lot of things that go through your mind at a time like this. That's a brand new extension. Here we go. Got to rebuild it all now. I've already sworn once on this pod, but I shan't do it again.
Each airbag can 24 tons of force. Pete hoped that the cuts
that's a lot of force from a blow-up pillar.
But the rest of the wall wouldn't.
I wonder how often they get to use that. I bet they're probably quite glad to get to use that.
Yeah.
Industrial whoopee cushion. It'd be fun if it made a whoopee cushion noise as it works.
Yeah. Just to provide some levity in these difficult times when it has to be used.
Yeah.
Well, here we go. We're through. There's a bit more movement here now, and we cut back now to the official pictures, and I think Melissa's about to be freed.
Yeah, here she comes.
So she would be sort of in her mid to late 30s now, would she? Do we think?
If this I know what you're thinking. You're thinking we should have got her on as a guest, aren't you?
Well, listen. I mean, her name's right there. All I'm saying is a quick Google.
Oh yeah, you're right. We're gonna have to try and find her on Twitter so we can tag her in there.
Yes, I'm going to be safe. I'm not
going
to.
Although, having said that, she's probably signed some sort of exclusivity agreement with 999, and we don't want Big Mick Burke coming round.
No, we don't want Burke on us. Also, if she might end up listening to it and then hear what we have to say about her uncle, and then he might get on the phone. He might. He's gonna. He just seems like the sort of guy who's gonna hold a grudge. And
yeah, that's true. I wonder if he did ever get round to rebuilding his extension, or if he just thought, you know what, let's just knock it down. Let's just knock it down again.
Well, I hope they did. There's I think it's just. Well, I'm sure it's just this YouTube clip, but the heroic fireman in question gets cut off at the end. I don't know if you noticed. He's sort of saying how sort of proud he was, and it just cuts off and goes straight to Juliet Morris, the other co-presenter, who is maybe the most 90s presenter I can think of. I'd totally forgotten about her until I looked at this. But she used to do Newsround, didn't she?
Yes,
she was very much my Newsround era.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else she did either. So
no, I looked her up on Wikipedia, and she hasn't really done much since. So I think she's changed career, or I don't know. Get in contact if you're listening, Juliet, because we'd like to hear from you. So
yeah, well, and listen, Ed, as we always say, anybody who's been involved in any of these clips, do let us know. Let us know. Pip Pullman, if you're listening, please, and if you've still got that Granada stroke Cortina, we would like to know. We would like to know exactly what it is. If nothing else.
Yeah. Pip, how's a Granada? Is it Granada or is it a Cortina? Yeah, I mean, he's probably dead now, isn't he?
It's a shame. It's a shame to say, but most probably yes. Yeah.
So that's the thing, isn't it? When you deal in 90s nostalgia, a lot of people are going to be departing now, which is
you got to be prepared. You got to be prepared for that heartbreak. Yeah. So there we are. That's our little whistle stop tour through some of the highlights of 999.
Yeah.
Maybe something we can explore for other programs. Little highlight reels. I think this has worked. I think this has worked fairly well as a. I've just seen down here. Do you remember a TV program called The Life of Grime?
Yes, I do.
Life of Grime.
Yeah.
So there's the Mr. Trebus special is available on YouTube, and he was a guy he was a hoarder who was in constant fracas with Haringey Council about the state of his home and the outside of it. So that'd be worth a watch, although I think it is 2000s. So unfortunately, but maybe I'll just watch it in my own time and I'll just enjoy it myself. I can do that. It's a free country.
You can do that. It's nothing stopping you doing that.
I don't have to watch and listen to 90s stuff all the time just because I host this, do I?
No. But if you do listen to anything, actually, you should keep it to yourself.
Yeah, all right.
Keep it off the social media channels anyway.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll cut this out as well. Don't want to annoy anybody.
Right. So yeah, that was great. I enjoyed that. If anyone out there does or can find the javelin incident clip, I would love to see that again. And maybe we could use that for any future 999 episodes. Same also with the lorry tire explosion one that traumatized me. I'd kind of like to purge that from my system by rewatching it.
And Operation Coat Hanger, if anybody's got that hanging around, please do let us know.
Hanging around. Coat hanging around. Okay, great. So I think that's about it for this episode. We hope you enjoyed that slightly traumatic run down memory lane. And I'm gonna read through the where is it, the contact details. I've lost my train of thought now because I'm thinking about coat hangers. So if you do want to get in contact with us about 999 or about something else we've talked about in previous episodes, or our new feature on what's the most 90s thing this week, obviously it was football team, so what's the most 90s football team, or anything about the pod, then get in contact on Twitter at allright90s, on email at allright90s@gmail.com, and you can find us on Facebook as well. It's facebook.com/allright90s. All of them are letters only, there's no numbers, and we'd love to hear from you, so please get back in contact if you contacted us before, and if you're new, then we definitely want to hear from you. So
yes, please.
Okay, well, thanks for listening. It's goodbye from me, and
it's goodbye from me, and it's also goodbye from John Challis.
Prestige claimed to be Slough's #1 body repair centre. They claim to give free estimates, recovery, collection and delivery within a 30-mile radius and up to 100% off your insurance excess. A 2-year paint warranty through the ICI Paint Guard scheme, a 12-month warranty on all structural work undertaken, highly trained technicians...